Welcome to our Digital Opportunities webinar series. I'm Ann Byers, the Digital Equity Manager for the state of Nebraska. I'm with the Nebraska Information Technology Commission and Office of the CIO. We will be meeting on most Wednesdays at 11 a.m. going into May or June. The webinars provide an opportunity for us to learn together and support state and regional digital equity planning efforts. Today's webinar will focus on makerspaces and digital equity organizations. We have some really great speakers today talking about very innovative programs in Nebraska. Our speakers today include Michael Sowers from the DoSpace, which is an incredible space for digital access and learning in Omaha. I've been there several times and it's always very cool to stop by and see what they're doing. We also have David Martin from the Nebraska Innovation Studio, which is an amazing makerspace in the University of Nebraska's Innovation Campus. Again, it's very cool. I love going there. So I'm excited to have both David and Michael here to talk about their projects. And then we have Christine Flyinghawk from the Center for Rural Affairs talking about a new program where they're launching collaborative workspaces on Nebraska Indian Community College campuses in Macy and Santee. And so I think that's very exciting, and I'm thrilled to have her here to learn more about this. Move on with some of the administrative items. Please put your name in the chat. This helps us track attendance. If you would like to be added to our email list, please include your email in the chat. We will be recording the webinar. And a copy of the slides and a link to the recording will be available on the NITC's website and also on the Nebraska Broadband website. The Nebraska State Digital Equity Planning Initiative is part of the Connect Nebraska Broadband Initiative, and the planning grant is being led by the Nebraska Information Technology Commission, Office of the CIO, in partnership with the Nebraska Regional Officials Council and the Nebraska Library Commission. And this initiative was funded by a digital equity planning grant from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. Recording slides and links to the resources are posted at the broadband.nebraska.gov website and the NITC's website. And before we get started, here's a heads up on some of our upcoming webinars. On March 15th, we'll be focusing on STEM and technology workforce development with Shauna Dorsey from the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, Alan Wang from Prairie STEM, and Candace Miller from the AIM Institute. And on March 22nd, we'll be focusing on the Affordable Connectivity Program with Anthony Butler from the FCC and Jenny Miller from the Education Superhighway. So now I'm going to hand this over to our first speaker, Michael Sowers.
Thank you, Ann. I really appreciate it. Good morning to everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what DoSpace is, some of our background stats, and then kind of two particular projects that we're doing here at DoSpace with what I've kind of come to discover in putting this together, some completely different results when it comes to kind of equity and access. So I'm hoping it'll kind of generate some questions and a little bit of discussion. So we'll go ahead and the next slide there, just a little bit about DoSpace for those of you who are not familiar with us. We're at 72nd and Dodge in Omaha. We opened in November of 2015. I'm the technology manager here. I've been with the project since before we opened. I'm one of two last original employees still here. And we are open 90 hours a week. We are free for anyone to use. We are kind of those of us who put it together are a bunch of librarians. And so we wanted to kind of experiment to see what happens to a community when you offer a certain level of technology completely for free. So think public library, but instead of full of books and other media, we're full of computers, what we call our 3D lab, and some various other things. So in the next slide, we kind of break down our stuff into kind of four areas. Technology access. So I mentioned we have a computer lab of 57 public access desktop PCs, both Macs and PCs. We have a program we call Tech Kits, which are pieces of technology that people can check out and either use in the space or take home, depending on the piece of technology. We have a Littles Lab for the little kids. We have an active learning lab for a little more kind of sort of teens, but a range of ages there. We have meeting spaces with computers built in and touch screens. We have gigabit bandwidth fiber into the building. So we're kind of underlying everything. We provide that technology access. We also have an extensive education program. We offer somewhere between 60 and 80 programs a month, ranging from Littles Lab for the toddlers up to Cyber Seniors, which is tech help with senior volunteers for seniors, and kind of any topic you can think of in between, either by one of our staff instructing or through external instructors that we bring in. We also have a 3D lab, which I'm going to focus on in just a minute. 3D lab right now has various pieces of equipment in it. We have about 4 levels of 3D printers available. We have a ULS laser cutter, a Glowforge Pro, a Carvey CNC. We also have a sewing machine. We have a Cricut with various attachments to that, a heat press and a mug press, and some other odds and ends of equipment that people can use in that space. Hopefully this summer, we're going to be adding a few more pieces of equipment, including a sublimation printer and a embroidery machine. So, and a 3D scanner. We've had those in the past and our last one died. So we've got a new one, hopefully on the way. And then lastly, we've done a special program called our Tech Pack program, which is the other thing I will focus on in just a moment. So on my next slide, I just kind of have some high level details about our user base. If it's a statistic, we track it. And so I started running some reports, and right here, I just kind of want to talk about kind of big picture. We have over 90,000 people who are members, as I mentioned, completely free. You don't even have to live in Omaha. You just need to be able to come to the space to use us. And those, the demographics of our members pretty much mirror within a point or two with the Omaha demographics. So ethnicity, employment, education level, it's not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's pretty darn close. When it comes to, however, our what we call our repeat users, the people who are coming in on a regular basis, whether that be daily or once a month, but our regulars, we have generally found that those stats then skew, and they skew to folks with less access, whether at home or at work, lower level of education, lower level of income, and they definitely lean much more diverse. So when you look at those regular ones, we have much more diverse population coming into the building than are just as our memberships. But then I kind of wanted to go a little further. So our next slide is just kind of a real quick, the 3D lab. I ran some numbers on the 3D lab, and I found in putting this together, I had not really done this before. I've always kind of focused on bigger picture. So I ran the numbers of people who have used our 3D lab since opening. And so I've got just a couple of pie charts on the next slide here for a couple. When it comes to our employment for the people who are using that higher level Makerspace equipment, you can see the big lime green there, that's bachelor's degree. And the purple off to the left there is your master's degree. So what I'm realizing is higher education level of the people that are using specifically the 3D lab, not just us as a space for access. So kind of my assumption here is that, definitely people kind of have access to the internet and a desktop computer, but they don't have access to that higher end equipment. And so they're coming in. Our next slide is employment. And again, in this case, you can see more than half, it's about 60%, are employed full-time. So our lower end employee folks, that does kind of run a third in that light blue. But again, as opposed to our actual user base and our regular users of us as a whole, we tend to have people with a higher level of employment using our 3D lab. And then the last one I have on the next slide is, actually I have 2 more, our ethnicity. This one kind of blew my mind a little bit. You can see here that about 80% of our users of our 3D lab are white, non-Hispanic. Um, I need to do some work is literally what I'm going to say here. This one really kind of caught me off guard. Had I thought about it, I could probably think of it as I walk by the lab. I do mostly see white faces there, but diversity when it comes to using our 3D lab is something I am just going to say we definitely have to work on. And then the last statistic I have with the gender breakdown, this one here is pretty much, again, about 60% male, 25% female, with the rest in other categories. So again, we definitely have kind of a skewing here. This one also surprised me a little bit because if you ask me about who the regular users of the 3D lab are, I can name more women than men, but these are my numbers. These are going back to 2015. So we're definitely kind of skewing one direction here. So, you know, from this small piece of DoSpace, I'm going to be honest and say we've got some work to do. I'm kind of glad I ran these numbers, and I think we definitely need to do some outreach and whatnot. And I will have to watch the recording, but I would love to see what UNL is saying about what they have access to, and maybe UNO also maybe in a future presentation. So the other program I want to talk about is our Tech Pack program. So this is getting a little, you can go to our next slide here, little away from the Makerspace, but DoSpace is more than a Makerspace. So I wanted to talk about two different programs that we have here. So on my next slide, just kind of a description of what this Tech Pack program is. Back last summer, we got a $750,000 federal grant from the Emergency Connectivity Fund. This allowed us to purchase 956 Chromebooks, along with Wi-Fi hotspots and 1 year of data. So this program will be ending at the end of May. Our year will be up on the data. Participants have been asked to attend I think it's 6 classes over the year at DoSpace of any topic that they would like. We are also working with UNO to put out some surveys to those members to see how they're using it, who they are, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the program, as long as they fulfilled the requirements, they do get to keep the laptop. Unfortunately, the data connection, the hotspot, that is something we do have to return to the company. They don't provide services to individuals. They provide service at kind of an organizational level. So my next slide doesn't actually have data on it. I do want to stress this is very preliminary data, and I had to kind of get permission to share some of these numbers with you. But from a participant's perspective, 78% of those participants are women. 53% label themselves as Black or African American. 30% is a high school education or lower. So we're definitely back to the lower level of education. The two numbers though that are really interesting to me is 45% of participants in this program say that their household annual income is $20,000 or less. Okay. That is, you know, the household income. I think we have numbers about how many are in the household, but this is definitely reaching a lower income population. And then 37% of our participants said that outside of this program, they have zero internet access otherwise outside of this program. So not even including cell phone access. They might have a cell phone, but they don't necessarily have a data connection. So we are definitely reaching out on that, on you know, data equity and trying to reach those folks who really do need these services. From a usage perspective, a lot of them, we've kind of asked them how they've been using it. Again, very preliminary data. About 75% said they've been using it to get news. 71% to learn and develop internet skills. 59% search and apply for jobs. 58% attending online classes. 53% apply for government programs. And 51% get health and medical information. So, you know, obviously people can check more than one option in that case. But I feel like this has been a very successful program for us. It was the first one of its kind that we've done. We've heard of other similar programs around the country. I know there's one library who did this at the level of about 20,000 people. I have no idea how they pulled that off, but you know, we were trying to get to 1,000, and trust me, we could do 20,000, but again, it's kind of funding and staffing and making this all work. So in the brief amount of time that I had, we can go to our last slide there. There's my email address if anybody has any questions now or later. But just kind of a high level overview of some of the things we've been doing to deal with digital equity here at DoSpace.
Are there any questions for Michael? Michael has to leave, and so he won't be available for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can also put it in the chat. Monica, did you see any questions in the chat?
No, I don't.
Well, if any questions come up, just feel free to drop me an email. I will do my best to answer them. Definitely come this fall, we'll have some sort of full report on that Tech Pack program. And then, you know, maybe ask me in 6 months how we're doing with the diversity in our 3D lab. That's definitely something I feel like I have just figured out I really need to work on.
Yeah, Michael, we definitely would be interested in the results of the report.
I did see a question come through. What was the startup cost on DoSpace as a whole or the Tech Pack program? I don't have a raw number for DoSpace as a whole. We're run by a nonprofit called Community Information Trust, which was funded by Heritage Omaha. So I would say we are definitely well funded historically. I don't have the big giant number, but definitely in the millions is about the best number I can give you off the top of my head. So. All right. Well, I like I said, happily answer any questions if you email me. Everybody enjoy the other presentations and the rest of the meeting, but unfortunately I have another meeting I need to head off to.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael, for that
You're welcome.
presentation. Thank you. So, and now we'll move on to David Martin.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Ann, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I am the director at Nebraska Innovation Studio. We are located on Innovation Campus, as Ann mentioned. We opened in October 2015. And like the DoSpace, we are a makerspace. And as you'll see as we go through Innovation Studio, a makerspace can be a lot of things. And so each makerspace around the country is probably a little bit different. So we are open to anybody. So we have a huge range of people that come in here, from students under 18 to mostly, which are actually a very small number, to UNL students, to Nebraska Wesleyan and SCC students. And then we have people who are faculty, staff, retirees, and veterans. So we're going to go through everything here. So Makerspace basically is a place that provides tools for people to use. In this case, it's for anyone who wants to join up. So unlike the DoSpace, which is free, we actually do charge a monthly fee. So we're sort of like a gym with tools. So people, the fee depends on your relationship to the university. So if you are a UNL student, you pay $20 a month. If you are another student, you pay $30 a month. If you're faculty, staff, alumni, veteran, you pay $50 a month. And if you're a regular community member, you pay $70 a month. And with that membership, you get free training on everything, and you know, have access to all the tools. There's no surcharge to use the tools. So if we want to move ahead on these slides, there's our building. There's a if you want to go a few forward, Makerspace is a gym with tools. And then we'll just keep flipping along here. I got a lot of slides. We'll get through this. Hopefully it won't be painful. There are some students working on a metal project. One thing, you know, talk about digital equity. Most of the machines here, the equipment here involves digital fabrication. So we have, you create a digital file, you send it to in this case, the fiber laser, and you cut something out of metal. you could take that same digital file and you know, make T-shirts using that design, or cut something or engrave something out of wood, or make an embroidered patch. So we do have computers here that have all the design software on it. I know that's a huge benefit for people who don't have access or the funds to use that, things like SolidWorks or even Adobe Illustrator. The next couple slides, I've got maps showing where all the makerspaces are. These slides, these are from the internet. I'm sure they're outdated. I guarantee there are a lot more makerspaces than that now. It is really a global phenomenon that really rests on the whole notion that of digital fabrication, that it's kind of the price of these tools has gone down enough so that they can be provided by someplace like UNL. The next picture shows fab labs around the world. Again, there's a lot of them out there, and they're growing by the day. So for those of you who don't know, the next couple slides show where we are located. It used to be the fairgrounds here in Lincoln, and the university, the state legislature gave the university the money to buy the land and to move the fair to Grand Island. So Innovation Studio, so the next slide has some of the early days. And the plan for Innovation Studio was to sort of connect the university with entrepreneurs and with companies to sort of generate some economic development and some innovation. So in the next slide, we'll have some of the folks that are out here. N-Motion, Combine, New Tech Ventures, they're all efforts to help sort of take ideas and put them into use, to actually get them into production. The next slide will show that we are one of the very, very few academic maker spaces that is open to the community, and we're really proud of that. Only about a quarter provide any sort of access to a quarter of university maker spaces provide any sort of public access. So that really is a bonus, I think, for us and for the community. The next few slides, I'm going to take you on a very quick tour of our space. We have 16,000 square feet, and that includes a wood shop on the next slide. And then the next slide shows our metal shop. And we've got a rapid prototyping room with 3D printers and CO2 lasers. On the next slide. And the next slide after that, we've got a ceramics area. And then the next one shows our art studio. And then our textile room. And finally, the last slide, or the second to last slide for our tour here is our general work area. Place for larger projects. One thing that's interesting, that picture in the lower left is an engineering group that made art boxes for the makerspace in white clay. So someone from the Rotary International took a tour of our space, and I said, well, what do you need? Because we have this engineering group, engineers to change the world. And they said, well, we could use some art boxes. So the group got together and assembled these art boxes, which were loaded up and sent out to white clay, which is pretty cool. And finally, the last slide here will show our classroom. We have a classroom that we can use. We have about 4 or 5 classes every semester.
I was on, no, but I will.
All right, moving on. Let's go quickly through who we have here.
What's that?
As who comes in as members. We have
Yeah,
students.
could you, if you're not speaking, could you please mute yourselves?
They vote cloture.
What's that?
They vote cloture on.
Okay.
Brent was not voting.
Well, okay, we'll just keep going here. We've got
Yeah, I'm gonna turn, I was watching this innovation or the equity thing from the whatever, but yeah. I'm still scatterbrained.
okay. So who uses the Nebraska Innovation Studio? We have students, obviously, that come in here that do a lot of different projects, either with classes or independently. The next slide will show a student who did as part of a textiles class where they run design patterns through the laser patterns out of fabric. The next slide shows interior design class. It's experimenting with different materials. So here they got to cut things out of metal, and they learned welding and put things together that way. The next slide shows a couple students who had a grant to, or are actually part of a NASA competition for a CubeSat project. And then we've got, the next one will show an art class that was here. And then the next one after that will show a student learning how to weld. I mean, one thing that's kind of interesting is a makerspace really stretches people's skills and abilities and actually their confidence. So most people who come in here to make something, it doesn't work very well the first time. They need to learn. There's kind of a learning curve, and oftentimes people fail in their first efforts and they have to regroup and kind of do things again. So I know one of the emphasis of the university is really hands-on experiential learning. And this is really sort of ground zero for that. And it really does build resilience. I mentioned the student group that worked with a makerspace in White Clay. The next slide shows we had a student group called the Theme Park Design Group that's based here, and they got together and built some toys basically for the giraffes at the zoo. The next slide will show the toys in action. Giraffes actually only sleep about an hour or two a day, I think, so they need a lot of entertainment. So we'd worked with the zookeeper, the giraffe keeper at the zoo, and they made these special implements for the giraffes. The next slide was a couple more pictures of the artist boxes for White Clay. And that's a kind of a range of kind of the student projects. We flip ahead, you'll see we have artists that come in here, make all sorts of interesting things. The next one is, screen print. And then this next picture is David Manzanares, who cut the stencils for that incredible mural on our laser and then painted it out near Cultiva on 11th Street. And that was a pretty cool project, I think. And then the last picture of an artist here, we have Jay Yoshimoto, he's actually a professor at UNO, and he cuts these three-dimensional pieces out of wood and then paints them and makes these incredible little mini sculptures. We also have hobbyists. Hobbyists probably make up the largest percentage of the people that come in here. These are people who just want to make things. They're not selling them or doing anything else. They're just here for the joy of making and I guess using what they make. So John's a veteran and he learned how to use the loom. The next picture shows someone, a guy who was here with FEMA, and he said he could either spend his nights at the hotel bar or come into the innovation studio and make something. So he made this incredible paddleboard while he was here. The next picture shows a student making a stand for the skull, prehistoric skull. And and if you wanted to start flipping through, we have craft entrepreneurs. The next picture shows Lenora Allen. She's actually she has her own business, and she's actually going to be coming in here this spring as part of Habitat for Humanity. She's gotten a group of women builders together, and they're going to women who want to build help with Habitat for Humanity, and she's going to help teach them how to build stuff. So that's going to be pretty cool. Flipping down, you see we've got students making other interesting things for weddings or t-shirts. We have something called Request a Maker, where if you are talented, you can request one of our makers to make something for you, which is a pretty cool project. We've got local, if you want to go down a couple more, Anne, that's a Request a Maker, and the next picture will show that someone actually making something for that. We've got local companies that come in here. The design for the new luxury boxes at Memorial Stadium were made at Innovation Studio. Huddle has used our space. There is a company called Midwest Climbing that they've come in and they've made a lot of things for their business here. And then we have local organizations like the Lux that come in and use screen printing or the vinyl cut or other things. We also have a veterans program here. We had an anonymous gift that pays for all their membership. And we've had more than 230 veterans come in here, and they've spent more than 1,000 months here. And we had a study done, and showed that these veterans showed increased mindfulness, increased well-being, learning opportunities, feeling of gratitude, and social support, increased social support. So that's been a really amazing program. And then we've got researchers that come in here, and we have inventors that come in and prototype designs. As I mentioned at the beginning, all the training is free. The equipment does not have any sort of surcharge, and sometimes we'll have workshops that help people build their skills. So we'll skip way down to the bottom here. I know I'm running out of time, but I just want to let you know that what's next is down on like slide 94 here. We have got a couple things happening. Number one, we've got a gift that will help us allow Lincoln Public School seniors to come in and work on projects. And then we have a big robotics grant, a $4 million robotics grant that's going to allow us to do some programming. So the programming will be two things. Well, number one, we're going to buy robotics equipment. The other thing is we're going to have 3 different programs that'll be open to the community that will be free initially and hopefully remain free. And there'll be introduction to automation, so helping people move from manual labor to running a machine. We'll have introduction to robotic prototyping, and we'll have introduction to embedded systems. So something like the Roomba that rolls around your apartment vacuuming, that has the embedded systems are the sort of the software inside the machine that helps it know what to do. So we're really excited about being part of that robotics grant, and really hoping it'll help open our doors to people who may not have access to the software or the tools, but have ideas they want to try out. And at the end of this, after the next speaker, I'd be glad to answer any sort of questions. And if I forgot to put my email on here, but if you want, I'd be glad to share my email and answer any questions you have if you want to email me separately.
Are there any questions for David?
There's a couple in chat. Rachel Margruder says, do you feel your fee schedule accommodates low-income residents?
Clearly we'd love to be free if we could, but we fall under the university and we are heavily subsidized. I feel like $20 a month is a pretty incredible deal for access to all the tools. I mean, if you subscribe to the Adobe Creative Suite, that's $40 a month, for example. You could go to the Home Depot and buy one tool and it would probably be more than $20. So, obviously we are not free. We do charge people to be here, but I do feel like I feel like we are accessible, I think, to most people.
There's another question from Tom Bliss. In spite of training, do you still require staff oversight when using the dangerous or expensive tools, aka woodworking and CNC machines?
We do not require staff oversight. I mean, we give pretty extensive training, and then we have each piece of machine equipment has a standard operating procedure book that people can refer to. And then we really do encourage people to ask us questions. So if they're using the bandsaw or something like that, we're not hovering over them, but we do hope that if they have a question, and we definitely encourage when they have a question to ask us. Luckily, we have not had, the most serious injury we had in here was a cut in the ceramics room. So we've been very lucky so far, and I think we do give a lot of credit to that, to our training. You could come in here and say you're a cabinet maker, and we'd still make you go through our wood shop training. So, but that said, we're not hovering, or we're not there. We're not required to be there when they're using the dangerous equipment. Although someone is required to be here all the time, some staff members. So no one is, as much as members would love 24/7 access, we only allow access when a staff member is here.
And Tom Bliss also asked, do you work with places like Turbine Flats as your members graduate?
That's a great question. You know, we Turbine Flats does a great job. We are sort of you know, we would love to do more collaboration. We're sort of stretched pretty thin here. So we're between trainings and running this place. We don't have a lot of time to really do much. I mean, we do when we have members here that are sort of prototyping designs for business, we're not really set up to be a mass production facility. So our hope is that people will come up with the next big idea, prototype it here, and then move on to somewhere else.
That's all for questions. Drew did ask if you could type your email into chat.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, David, for that great presentation. And next we'll move on to Christine Flyinghawk, who's going to talk about one of the state's newest makerspace projects. So we're delighted to have you here, Christine.
Yes, thank you for inviting me on today. We're at a much different stage of our development of our makerspace than either of the other two presentations. My name is Christine Flyinghawk, and I do work for the Center for Rural Affairs as our Native Communities Manager. And I oversee our work in community with the Omaha tribe, the Santee tribe, and we've also done outreach with the Winnebago and the Ponca tribe as well. But our makerspaces are located at the Nebraska Indian Community College location. And if you'd want to, next slide. So our dream kind of started. I have been in my position for, I'm starting my third year. Prior to this, I was a family and consumer science teacher for the Santee Tribal School. And I knew that there has been other makerspaces that travel around to libraries across Nebraska. And I wanted that for our communities. So I went off to research, hey, how can we get these mobile makerspaces that travel to different towns in Nebraska? How can we bring them to our reservations? Because having access to these tools really can open up so many new businesses and opportunities and funding sources for families. And with our reservations being so remote and rural, sometimes access to travel is difficult, access to, we don't have all of the opportunities that communities in Omaha and Lincoln have, being so rural. So I wanted to try to figure out how we could bring that. So I went and found the person, and they said, well, since you don't have a typical public library that the communities in Nebraska do, our libraries are either at the college or the school for community members to use. So they said that they wouldn't consider us for that opportunity. So I went on, and I actually got to meet David a couple of years ago, and he gave me a tour of their makerspace at Innovation Campus, and I was over the moon. Everybody needs to go take a tour of David's space because it's really what dreams are made of. Hopefully someday we can get there or close to something similar, but we're starting out really small with our makerspace. So after talking with David, talking with community members who, explaining what a makerspace is and how it can be used, and then asking community members, hey, what is your input? What kind of machines would you like to have access to that either A, you can't afford, because oftentimes the machinery is super pricey, especially if you're on a limited income. And that's not everybody on our reservations, but typically it's one of those things that is a challenge, finding the finances to make something like that and having the confidence to be like, okay, I can invest $1,500 in this machine because I want to start this business. Sometimes those first steps are terrifying, especially when you're like, should I take this $1,500 and put it into something that may not work? Or am I able to pay my propane for the next 5 months? And having to make those decisions as parents, especially on limited incomes, is a challenge. So that was a big part of why I felt like it was a need in our community, and community members backed it up and were excited for it. So we went ahead, I researched different prices for and different equipment, and we settled on different things to purchase. The other thing is having a location. We didn't have necessarily a permanent room that we can just have stuff set out and dedicated to the makerspace. So the other part of this is that we needed to be able to store our equipment in the rolling cabinets. So you'll see that right there on the side. So we're able to still have the equipment and it's movable so that we aren't taking up too much classroom space when it needs to be used with NICC, but we're still able to bring it out and use it. Next slide. So this is one of our trainings for Glowforge. So we have a Glowforge in our makerspace. We started off with introing, just having all of our equipment out and the machines out, and just invited community members who were interested to come and take a look, see what we have, see what they might be interested in. And we did some quick demonstrations with a couple of the different machines and allowed community members to try it. We now we're just kind of getting off the ground because we had to order. We started it here in this past fall. So that's when we started to get off the ground funding wise. So ordering the equipment, training our staff, because all of our staff needs to have the full understanding and training of how to use, what not to do, and then create a guide for each machine on how to use it for, quick access, as well as signed agreements. So we wanted to make sure that after the initial trainings that we had documentation for our community members to sign and say, hey, we will use this equipment respectfully, responsibly, and we have been trained and understand the safety requirements. Because that was something we wanted to make sure we had to CYA. And then we have, so our staff are trained, our equipment's starting to come in, or most of it's in now, and we're hosting regular workshops based on different machines. So our Glowforge machine training, we just did a quick little keyring attachment that everybody got to design and create their own version. And then we will have our makerspace open a couple evenings a week here starting mid-March. So it will be posted with a staff member regularly in attendance to make sure everything's put out or have access to. Next slide. So our equipment that we have the Glowforge Pro, we have a Cricut 3, we have a t-shirt press, a sublimation printer, a quilting machine, sewing machines, embroidery machines, and a sticker and button maker. So while it may not seem like a huge list, there's a whole lot that we can get achieved through these things, as they're limitless. One of the big things that I'm super excited for our makerspace is for our quilting machines. I'm not sure how many of you know about Native American star quilts and how they're often given in times of memorials or to honor someone, but they end up being quite pricey to purchase as well as to make for the materials. And oftentimes you can to make your top for your quilt at home with your regular sewing machine, but then you have to get it sent off to a quilter, and getting you a blanket quilted can cost a pretty penny. So do you want to shell out $100, $150 or more to get your quilt top done? It really eats into your profits. So I'm thrilled that we have a quilting machine that people are going to be able to come and use, and hopefully increase the amount of income that they're able to make. We started, this proposal was about just under 200,000 for equipment, staffing, training, travel, and just kind of encompassing it all in one. And then we intend on seeking additional funding for additional equipment or supplies for community members to use. Our Makerspace is free for any of our community members who decide to participate in it. Our workshops are free for any participant that would like to come, but the cost for participants comes at the second stage when they're ready. Say somebody wants to do t-shirts. So they're going to come in and either use our Cricut or a sublimation printer to make all their designs for their t-shirts. They'll have to bring in their t-shirts and their vinyl or materials that they're going to use on their cost. And we felt like that was the most reasonable compromise and really will help people get going off the ground for their business. There's not a lot of economic opportunity in our communities, as they are really rural, so jobs are limited. So being able to have a side hustle, even if you have a main job, this equipment is really going to open doors for people who want to start up a small business. And with this, we also have small business training and coaching that we offer our participants. And then at CFRA, we also do small business loans. So we can package the whole thing together depending on the needs for each client that we have. But I'm thrilled to see where this takes our community members. I don't have the statistics yet, like we did on our first presentation, but I anticipate in a year we're going to have some great details and stories that we're going to be able to share. So I hope that you guys follow along with our story with our Makerspace, and I'm open to any questions anybody may have.
Well, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I want to say congrats, Christine. I know what a huge undertaking it is to start a Makerspace. And I know we have we've been around for 7 years, so we have the advantage of having pictures of where we are now. But if you'd taken a picture of Innovation Studio back around when it started, it would be pretty sparse and just a few pieces of equipment. We're largely self-funded, and it's been a process of slowly growing over time. So congratulations on what you've done so far.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your guidance and sharing your path that you took in getting it up and running.
Yeah, I would also like to congratulate you, Christine, because the great job you have done in getting this started. And I'd also like to commend the Nebraska Innovation Studio for their willingness to help others interested in setting up Makerspaces. I think Holly Waltz is on here. I know the Library Commission had a grant and partnered with the Nebraska Innovation Studio to set up a mobile makerspaces that went out to the various libraries and provided training. And, that was really a great way to expose libraries to makerspaces, and many of them went on and purchased their own equipment. And so I love that organizations like the Nebraska Innovation Studio and the Do Space, I think, has also been very good about sharing information and helping others interested in their programs, so that we help each other.
Definitely. It's great to be able to reach out to other people and see what path they took, what were their struggles. So definitely, if anybody ever has questions or wants, I don't have all the experience David has, but I would definitely be open. I can share my email in the chat if anybody would like to email me later.
So yeah, any questions for David or Christine? Yeah, Monica, were there any other questions?
No, none in chat.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Christine and David, for your wonderful presentations. Christine, I'm looking forward to touching base with you in 6 months or a year and seeing how things are going. And we're also, as part of our state digital equity planning grant and the BEAD planning grant, we're going to be doing some outreach sessions, and maybe we would even get to stop by and see the makerspaces in person. That would be awesome.
Yes. Thanks. Thank you for inviting me on today, Anne.
Okay, well, thank you all. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.